Hi, and welcome to What Else is New. I'm your host, Kelly Green, and this is my little show. It is, January 15th, 2025. Coming to you from Edmonton. It is above 0 degrees right now, fairly pleasant day, but we're looking for some cold temperatures to come. Anyways, I want to get right into the show. This week we're going to talk a little bit about the LA fires and some of the after effects of that, some of the smaller issues that might not be getting attention. We're going to talk a little bit about homelessness issues, poverty, and drug addiction, and a new development that has come out in Alberta recently. Somewhat of a positive thing. We're going to talk about jobs. I'm going to be talking about jobs. Actually, I got a call today. I have a job interview tomorrow. So, fingers crossed. I could be working again. We're going to promote a little channel called Environmental Coffeehouse. You may have heard of it. Sandy Shellis and her excellent work over on the YouTube and other platforms. I'm going to introduce you to my little fundraiser and then a query towards the end about what to do with all that toxic waste from the LA fires and every other urban fire. There's a lot of toxic ash and it's got to go somewhere. But before we get into all that, I want to show you this quick little story from, what's this guy's name? Matthew Capucci. This young gentleman is a star in the meteorological and social media world. So let's give that a look.
So I can't know for sure what the composition of these, former hubcap tires was, but you see what appears to be melted aluminum, and it's hardened on the ground. It's now obviously solid, but the melting point of aluminum is about 1100 degrees. It's believed that intense wildfires and forest fires like this can burn up to about 1400 degrees Fahrenheit in the lowest 1 meter. And seeing the damage, I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case.
So it turns out that those fires were pretty hot, melting the aluminum. It's not just space lasers anymore. Those fires actually get quite hot. And some of the things that make those fires especially hot in these urban areas are the materials that are being burned. A lot of plastic, a lot of oil-based materials, a lot of disgusting stuff. We're going to get into that in a second. First, I want to show you an article from, oh my goodness, I don't know how to pronounce his name. Evan, I'll just say Evan Thompson for now. He's been working on issues mostly surrounding the drug crisis. Prohibition politics, we'll call it. He's got a website, Drug Data Decoded. So we're going to take a look at that real quick. There's a Red Deer overdose prevention site that was set to roll back its hours. So these guys, as part of a larger plan by the provincial government to do away with harm reduction and force people into treatment. So this safe injection site, this safe use site, they'd cut the hours and they're set to close it out altogether. But there was a gentleman who took them to court and won. Aaron Brown, the plaintiff seeking to stop the Alberta government's closure of Red Deer's only overdose prevention site, won an injunction to halt the government's rollback of the site's operating hours in a Red Deer provincial court decision issued by Justice Gillian Marriott on January 13. The binding legal decision provides Recovery Alberta with 72 hours to reinstitute full 24/7 operating hours to the site. At age 40, Brown lost his job and custody of his children. He claims that these were traumatic events, led him to begin using fentanyl and methamphetamine, deepening his isolation. He eventually became unhoused, experienced numerous overdoses and imprisonment, and contracted hepatitis C. Alberta's mental health and addiction ministers have long promoted the view that overdose prevention sites are interchangeable with abstinence-focused services. An Alberta physician, speaking on condition of anonymity, responded to this perspective for Drug Data Decoded in context with the January 13 court decision. What the government of Alberta thinks is a reasonable alternative, i.e. its narcotic transition services, is ridiculous. There is no alternative to an overdose prevention site, and Justice Marriott affirmed this point in stating that unreasonable treatment choices are not true choices. All of this leaves the impression of a government that moved quickly to dismantle harm reduction, now running face first into the charter rights of directly affected people fighting back. Check this out. Forever chemicals in the brain. New study exposes silent invasion. January 12th, 2025. So we're talking about PFAS, forever chemicals, PFAS, per and polyfluorinated alkyl substances, often referred to as forever chemicals. Their ability to cross the blood-brain barrier and accumulate in brain tissue raises significant concerns, yet the mechanisms underlying their neurotoxic effects remain poorly understood. I mean, that's fine. We don't have to study this thing to death. We have to know that these things are a harm, and we should look at reducing them. Absolutely. Let's see if I highlighted anything else with regards to that. No, I did not. So SciTech Daily. But I have a few different pieces on the forever chemicals and their buildup in our brains, etc. Let's see, from The Lever. Forever chemicals. Makers hid dangers for decades. So this is a familiar story. Big oil, big tobacco, big pharma, big chemical, big agra, right? They know what their products do. They study them, and then they find out they're bad, and they're like, you know what, we're not going to share that information. So again, more forever chemicals used in products like non-stick pans and waterproof clothing. They knew about these dangers more than 40 years before the general public. 40 years they knew these things were harmful for us. Introduced into a variety of consumer goods beginning in the 50s, per and polyfluoroalkyl compounds, or PFAS, are linked to decreased fertility, developmental delays, and several types of cancer. While the human health risks became widely known during the last decade, manufacturers have known since at least 1970 that the compounds were highly toxic when inhaled and moderately toxic when ingested. And doubling back to the fires, a lot of these chemicals cooked up and in the ash, in the air, making it very, very hard to work for those people for the cleanup. And the first responders, there's going to be a lot of problems coming down in the years to come from people exposed to all those harmful chemicals in those fires. Now on that, more PFAS stuff. This is out of the UK. 3M knew that firefighting foams contained PFAS were toxic. So again, they've known this for a long, long time. The multi-billion-dollar chemicals company 3M told customers its firefighting foams were harmless and biodegradable when it knew they contained toxic substances so persistent they are now known as forever chemicals and banned in many countries, including the UK. From the 60s until 2003, 3M made foams containing PFAS and PFOA, synthetic chemicals that can take tens of thousands of years to degrade in the environment and have been linked to cancers and a range of other health problems, such as thyroid disease, high cholesterol, hormonal problems, and fertility issues. Pollution from these substances in soils and water is now widespread across the globe and has been detected in animals, human organs, and blood. They are part of a wider family of more than 15,000 chemicals known as per and polyfluoroalkyl substances, but popularly called forever chemicals. Once again, another company. They've known about these things for decades, and now it's everywhere. It's so persistent. It's in our blood, it's in our brains, it's in our food, it's in our water, it's in our soil, it's in the clouds, right? It's just everywhere. So this is speaking specifically to the wildfire smoke, and this comes out, this is almost a week ago now, or is a week ago, January 8th, from USA Today. Southern California already notorious for some of the worst air quality in the nation. People at highest risk from wildfire smoke include children, older adults, and those who are pregnant or have heart and lung conditions or weakened immune systems. Still, even healthy people can be affected. Fire smoke can cause headaches, dizziness, and nausea. Why it's dangerous? Fires release tiny molecules called fine particulate matter that are small enough to enter the body through the tubes that carry into our lungs and end up in the bloodstream. Along with trees and brush, homes and other structures have burned in the current blaze. As metals and plastics burn, they release toxins into the air, which can activate inflammatory responses, triggering asthma and heart attacks, and scarring lung tissue. Huge problem. Huge problem. And it's distressing to see so many people on the news, especially when those fires are fresh and there's so much contaminants in the air, and not having the proper respirators. Even a lot of the firefighters I saw on the news are not wearing the respirators. And I'm especially concerned about the probably undertrained and under-equipped inmate firefighters. Almost 1,000 of them. We'll get that in a second. You may have heard the story about Edgar McGregor. He's popular online. I see him on my Twitter, and he's often going into the hills around Los Angeles, and he does a lot of garbage pickups. I didn't know that he was an amateur meteorologist as well, running a Facebook group, doing forecasts for people in that area. But apparently, he's hero of the week because of his trust that he's built up and because of his knowledge of the area. He was able to warn quite a lot of people about the imminent danger coming, and he got folks to skedaddle in a hurry. So I got 2 short clips we're going to listen of Edgar McGregor.
Well, I think all of this really started back in May of last year. We saw one last rainstorm here in Southern California, and the mountains were lush, all sorts of plants and moss on the trees. Everything was bright green. And if you've lived in Southern California for a long time, you know that it doesn't rain here during the summer and the autumn months. And so all that fuel was going to dry out. Unfortunately, this autumn, we didn't see any rainfall return. It usually does so by November or December. And when the winds appeared in the forecast around New Year's Day, I knew that if a wildfire were to break out, it would not be pretty.
Okay, and then on to the next clip. Again, he knows his area, and I encourage people to listen to people who know their stuff.
As someone who wants to warn people of incoming danger, how do you balance keeping people informed of what you perceive as a very real mass threat without causing mass panic? I mean, were you a little worried that maybe you were being a little too, panicky?
Mm-hmm. Well, the difficult job here was not standing in the middle of the street at 6:30 p.m. that night telling everybody to get out as the mountains behind me were on fire. The difficult task was spending 3 years building trust in my community, whereby that when I made a forecast, people could be confident that that would come true. And I would never use the word extreme or cataclysmic or generational or anything like that, because when the conditions were right, I needed people to hear my words when I said run,
and so many
needed them to run.
And good for them that they did listen to him. I brought Edgar. I found him on the Twitter space. Edgar McGregor. Give a look for him. Follow him. And again, he's also, if you're in the Altadena area, Los Angeles area, you want to follow him on Facebook. It's Altadena Weather and Climate Group on Facebook. I want to show you some of his garbage pickups that he's doing. I guess he's been consumed with the fire. Out of the fire business. Oh, here he is doing trash pickup on my birthday 4 days ago.
Welcome to my 1993rd daily trash pickup here at my home park. It has been leveled. As I said on Monday, there was a very possible chance it could happen. It did indeed happen. Everything is completely destroyed. Every square inch is torched. All the buildings, all the trash cans, all the facilities, everything. It's all gone. Every last square inch.
Wow. So that's pretty heavy. You probably want to shave a little bit of the facial hair off to get a better seal on that N95 mask, but at least he is masked up. Again, you can find him online, and when there's not fires burning down his neighborhood, he's out there in his spare time picking up garbage. He picks up buckets and buckets of trash every day. He's done so for like 2,000 days. The guy is a hero. Okay, those who are fighting the blaze. Okay, here's a little piece about the firefighters, the imprisoned firefighters. What do you call these kids? The convicts. So the crews include more than 939 inmates from California prisons. The department says they're there voluntarily and are paid between $5.80 and $10.24 per day. So the way I understand it is work is mandatory in California prison, but you get to choose which types of jobs, I guess. You have a little bit of choice, so that would be the voluntary aspect of that. A couple of the stories that I've seen sort of lean towards how the inmates are grateful. It's easier time living in a fire camp than behind bars. Exactly. They get to be out in nature. They get to be in the community. They get a little bit of respect for the work that they're doing, which is nice. But again, one can't help ignore the fact they are 100% being exploited for their labor. And they don't look very well geared up. The footage that I just saw them in an orange coverall suit. I'm not even sure if they had a hard hat on. And it looked like they had to carry their bedding with them, their backpacks with a sleeping roll on the back. There's no mask or anything, no respirator, and yeah, they're not very well equipped. And in fact, prison inmate firefighters are at a higher risk for serious injuries and more than 4 times as likely to get cuts, bruises, or broken bones compared to professional firefighters working the same fires. They're also more than 8 times as likely to face injuries after inhaling smoke, ash, and other debris compared with other firefighters. No kidding. And I also caught a story, I wish I had tabbed it for you, but LA was also taking youth day laborers into burnt out zones to help with cleanup. Again, not recommended. You need proper hazmat gear, respirators at the very least, goggles, gloves, full suit. You don't want to be contaminating yourself with all these massive amounts of concentrated toxic items. Because, as you can see, air pollution and brain damage are linked. This is from Nature, January 14, 2025. Studies have linked dirty air to dementia and other brain disorders. Maybe that's my problem. It's too much dirty air. I know we have gas stove in the house without a proper vent, so we're breathing in low-grade amounts of toxic gas residue stuff. What do you call that stuff? The brain's not working. It's probably a proper word. How much harm they cause. So, study after study has shown that higher levels of air pollution are correlated with increased risks of dementia, as well as higher rates of depression, anxiety, and psychosis. Researchers have also found links to neurodevelopmental conditions such as autism and cognitive effects in children. Interesting. I wonder if the incoming HHS boss in the United States, RFK Jr., I wonder, because they're going to be looking at autism and other health issues that are endemic in the United States, and I wonder if they're going to look at things like air quality. That will be interesting. The WHO estimates that 99% of the world's population is exposed to pollution above recommended levels. "99% of the world's population is exposed to pollution above recommended levels." So I guess it doesn't really matter where you live in the world. There's no running, there's no hiding from what's in our air. We have to breathe all the time, almost as much as our heart beats. However, in regions where air quality has improved, there are decreased rates of dementia, cognitive decline, and depression. So we can clean it up, we can make it better. Not entirely risk-free, but we can do what we can. Now this is very long, and then eventually it sort of bottoms out. I'm not a paid subscriber to the Nature, but you get the gist. A lot of air pollution, a lot of different types of air pollution, from smoke to soot. Right? Remember back in the old days, we just thought of air pollution as kind of standard. We had our heavy metals, we had our smoke, we had our particulate pollutions and different stuff like that. Didn't have all this. I guess, no, we did have all the PFAS for all these decades. They just didn't tell us about it. What do we got here? What to know about toxic exposures from LA fires. So they're starting to educate about that. I've seen this, Los Angeles Public Press, news for LA by LA people. It's pretty good, by Dan Ross. Yesterday, what to know about toxic fire exposures. Urban fires tear through man-made materials with all sorts of dangerous and often carcinogenic substances. Think transformers containing PCBs, typical household items containing heavy metals like lead, copper piping, building materials with asbestos, electrical wires coated in toxic polyvinyl chloride, cars with lithium-ion batteries, furniture full of per and polyfluoroalkyl substances, and other household products made with volatile organic compounds. So again, all of that stuff is not good, and it's not good to be breathing that in. I did have a link somewhere. Oh, good. I kept that link. So if you're in LA, or if you know anybody in LA and they want to protect themselves somewhat from breathing in the toxic air until this gets cleaned up, if it can ever get cleaned up, list of locations you can get N95 masks in LA currently include LA Care Health Community Resource Centers, all Los Angeles Public Library branches, and Los Angeles City Recreation and Senior Centers, aquatic facilities, golf courses, museums, and the Cabrillo Marine Aquarium, all providing free masks. So get a mask, like that one, the N95 Edgar was wearing. Those are the better ones. Ideally, you'd want like a 3M actual respirator, something that's sealed with the 2 filters on the side, the real heavy-duty one. Now, this is a very sad story that I came across. It's probably not unique, but I'm going to highlight it. The death of an asylum seeker and the shelter crisis in Peel, Ontario, Southern Ontario, not far from Toronto, down east, I think, Peel region. So here's a woman, Delphina Njiji. She comes from Kenya, and she applies for asylum. So it's not easy for her. She has one friend in Toronto already that's able to put her up temporarily. But on the 3rd day in Canada, Delphina called the helpline and waited for someone to answer. Though they were longtime friends, Lydia couldn't house Delphina for much longer. Lydia is also an asylum seeker with limited resources and space. Her landlord doesn't permit guests. But Lydia knew the shelter system well, having navigated it herself when she arrived in the country to seek refuge the previous June. She knew that going to them directly, one after another, would be more helpful than listening to hold music on the phone. The 2 friends took an hour-and-a-half bus ride to Dundas Shelter. It was a frigid, snowy day with temperature hovering between 6 and 8 degrees Celsius. Negative 6 and 8 degrees Celsius. In a video Lydia took, Delphina walks from the bus stop on the side of a 6-lane roadway to the shelter. With her jacket hood over a big fluffy toque and thick scarf, she walks slowly in her winter boots and gives a tired smile to the camera as her friend excitedly narrates her first excursion, the beginning of life in Canada.
Kanaga your life in Canada. Wakati ulienda kutafuta shelter the first time. Oh yeah, todio kanya kahua. Okay, kaga. Sadly,
that was the end of her life in Canada or anywhere. Lydia told Delphina to go to the shelter while she waited at a Tim Hortons in the strip mall. The moment you go to a shelter with someone, they turn you away thinking this person can accommodate you. At around 1 p.m., shelter staff told Delphina they didn't have space and asked her to wait outside with a list of numbers for other shelters, including the Central Intake Helpline. None of the calls resulted in a bed. They never told her to leave, Lydia says. When you tell people like us to wait, that means there is hope. With hope for a bed, Delphina waited outside in the cold for 7 hours. On her 4th day in Canada, Delphina died. There's got to be a better way. Got to be a better way to do this. Right now it's chilly-ish, looks like below zero across much of the populated regions of eastern Canada and eastern United States. I'm over here feeling pretty warm for the middle of January, 3 degrees. But we'll just take a quick little look and jump through time, because that giant purple mass you see up there of the negative 20 temperatures, it's coming. It's coming. Oh, and then it goes. It comes and goes, but stays for you guys out east. So this is Wednesday of next week. So it looks like in Alberta, luckily enough, we only got a couple days of this big giant purple blob. Oh, on the Wordle today, I'm stuck after the 4th guess. Any suggestions for me? This might not be a bad job to explore. 50 to 55K a year. Looks like about 25 an hour. Climate Change and Sustainability Coordinator for Métis Capital Housing Corporation. I will be checking that out shortly. Oh, here we are. Environmental Coffeehouse by Sandy Shellis. Here's a bunch of shots of Sandy. Oh, there's Sandy as Ivana Trump. Hilarious stuff. She's going to be doing that character again soon, or that character will be on her show very soon. But I wanted to show you a little video that she put together a few days ago. We'll see if it has any kind of description. Let's hit pause on that for a quick second. Yes, thanks to Adam McKay at Zombie Panther 2 and Dr. Peter Kalmus, Climate Human. Okay, we'll back this up. Do one of these. 3 minutes, 41 seconds.
Listen to, I am willing to take a risk for this gorgeous planet, for my sons. And we've been trying to warn you guys for so many decades that we're heading towards a fucking catastrophe. And we've been being ignored. The scientists in the world have been being ignored. And it's gotta stop. We're gonna lose everything. And we're not joking.
Let's go talk to him.
Wow. Wow, that was pretty heavy duty, Sandy. That music. Wow, the pacing. The content. Holy cow. That dog at the end. Man, I want you all, if you're still here with me, go over to Environmental Coffeehouse. I'm going to leave a link, and then hit that subscribe button and the notification button so you get all of her content coming up this week. She says that Jim Massa and Professor Elliot Jacobson will be guests on her show. I think that's Friday, maybe Thursday. I don't know. Keep an eye on it. Otherwise, it's going to be back here. And she does Pajama Day on Sundays. She's got Left Past 10 with the Letter Hack and a couple other folks on Thursdays. She's really, really hard working and quite a lot of fun.
I've been studying this for a while, looking at all of the misinformation and disinformation and quite frankly bull crap that goes that's all over the internet.
She has. She's very, very well read, very well studied. She knows her stuff. She's been doing this channel, I think, for 10 years. Gets a lot of guests on there. Go back to my windy map for a second. She gets a lot of guests on there, and I encourage folks to, help her boost those numbers. Let's get Sandy up over 5,000 and growing. That would be really great. She's putting in a lot of work. That being said, where are we? Okay, I think we're down at the end of the line. Oh yeah, we did Sandy. Oh yeah, I wanted to show you that you could buy me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/Kelly Green. I forgot about this little fundraiser I'd set up a few years ago. Somebody along the way gave me $5. I haven't cashed it out yet. Well, that someone is Philip SW1. Thank you, Philip. I don't know who you are or when you gave that, or 3 years ago, but I very much appreciate that. And I promise you all, if you buy me a coffee, I will try not to forget for so long and maybe cash it out and actually buy a coffee. Actually, I was hoping I was tweaked into this because Sandy Shellis over at Environmental Coffeehouse was mentioning that you could buy her a coffee. So I checked out her site and I thought, or her page, and it's like, oh yeah, I have a buy me a coffee page. And what I wanted to do is transfer my $5 to her. And she's doing a fundraiser right now for the Pasadena Animal Shelter. So you like animals, you like charity, you like Sandy Shellis, you like the Environmental Coffeehouse. Give her some money this week. She's donating a bunch to the Pasadena Animal Shelter. Okay, and lastly, on today's show, I'm trying to find the story again about where all the toxic debris is being put and how they're dealing with it. I've got this little piece from 2021 explaining the debris removal process. Okay, it's quite an extensive process. And I read someplace that the fires in the last few years in California, some of the big fires, a lot of that resin, I think from the town of Paradise that burnt to the ground. I think a lot of that toxic material had to be gathered up and then trucked into the neighboring state of Nevada and buried in the desert, I suppose. Which isn't a proper way. You can't get rid of this stuff. You bury it, it ends up in the water supply eventually. You burn it, and it gets what's already been burnt in this case. So what do you burn toxic ash, incinerate the toxic ash, and try and reduce it even further? You're still going to get a bunch of smoke going into the atmosphere. You can put it in a clay-lined landfill. Eventually that's going to crack and leak and have issues. I don't know what they're going to do, how they're going to clean all that up. There's tens and tens of thousands of people that have lost their homes just this week from being burnt down. It is insane. Anyways, January 15th, 2025, I'm Kelly Green. This is What Else Is New. Please check out the links. I've linked everything that I've covered here in the show notes. Follow the folks that I recommended, such as Sandy Shellis at Environmental Coffeehouse and Edgar McGregor, I think, over on Twitter and on Facebook. And that's it. If you got any suggestions or tips or links or things that I should cover, figure it out, drop me a comment or send me an email or whatever. You can find me in all kinds of platforms. In fact, on the YouTube here, if you go into my profile, you'll find a link tree with a whole bunch of links to stuff. not discluding my Buy Me a Coffee page. So I could use one. This one's tasty, but I could use another coffee for when I go out later to pick up my driver's abstract for tomorrow's job interview. All right, thanks guys. We'll see you again.